Good afternoon. My name is Roger Zaire, and today I want to talk about the contemporary theories of leadership. Basically, highlighting four main ones, which is be the authentic leader, the adaptive leader, the servant leader, and then wrapping it up with understanding the followership theory. So let's go on and get started with authentic leadership. I've decided to break down this presentation into who, what, how, and also give some basic examples. I think understanding these aspects of each leadership style will give a pretty good understanding of how you could also use this in the future. So authentic leadership started back in 2003 through a author named Bill George. He was a Harvard Business School professor, and he actually conducted one of the largest development studies or leadership development studies ever. Him and a bunch of his colleagues interviewed about 125 business leaders to try to understand how leadership or leaders can actually become authentic. So to understand authentic leadership, let's get into the what. What are the core concepts of this style? Well, number one is you don't have to be born to be a leader. You can learn this. So leaders understand their stories. They really dig deep to understand who they are and where they come from. And they tend to learn from their experiences. These leaders reflect and do a lot of self-exploration. And then they ask and listen to honest feedback and use support networks to help develop their style. Now, how can I use this leadership style? I'll give an example. So, as a military member, we are faced with many ethical and moral decisions. So, spending time in self reflection to identify what my core values are extremely imperative to me. So, when I have to make a leadership decision, I must ensure that they actually align or that the actions that I take align with my core values. It must Those decisions must represent who I am. So as I seek feedback and I learn as I go, I tend to stay true to myself. And if I stay true to myself and my actions and my decisions, others will see me as that authentic leader. So I think that is very, very important, is really to understand who you are. Some examples of this: Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King. I really do not need to go in depth with any of these gentlemen to explain how authentic they were in their actions and their core values. So let's move on to the second contemporary theory of leadership, which is adaptive leadership. So adaptive leadership really took off around 1994 when Ron Heifetz's book that he wrote called "Leadership Without Easy Answers" really took a lot of attention from thought leaders like Parks and Williams and Foster, and these leaders really got together and started exploring the connection between leadership uh, and um, and then in systems of change. Now, the core concepts of this style of leadership are that leaders have very high emotional intelligence. They understand how to control their emotions and what is causing them to react. These leaders are honest, they're innovative, they're transparent, so they're not afraid to show what some people would call flaws. They learn from those. They embrace diversity, and leaders use support networks. So, how can or how do I actually use this leadership style? This is something I use a lot actually. As an intel officer, by nature, we are very reactive. Something happens, and then we try to learn about it and get intelligence about it. So, we always try to, instead of focusing on the results, we try to focus on the problem, because without resolving the actual problem, these problems will keep multiplying over and over. So I've learned over the years that I have to be innovative. I have to listen to my teammates and their recommendations. And that's usually what pulls us through. So I've learned to always anticipate that change will happen and try to get everyone around me to embrace that change can be good. And two examples of this historically would be Abraham Lincoln and General George Patton. Both of these men were known to be very honest men who embraced diversity, and they always focused on the problem at hand. They used people around them to try to figure out and solve the problem. They were not too focused on trying to get the results, and they made both of these men to be known as very honest individuals that can definitely accomplish a mission by using diversity in a team. So next we move on to servant leadership. This is one of my favorites. I really enjoy servant leadership. So uh, this was actually first developed um, actually way back in history, but it really took off back in 1970. So Robert Greenleaf um, pretty much coined the concept of servant leadership with his first publication of an essay back in 1970 called Servant as Leaders, or The Servant as Leader. The core concepts of this is the leader shares the power and control to drive the engagement. Um, the success that they look at is really measured with growth and development, not really on the results. Leaders are very quick to listen. Um, Being is better than doing, so kind of that leading by example and understanding that whatever they're trying to achieve, it's really not about them. It's really about the people they serve because they see leadership as an opportunity to serve others. Now, how can I and how have I used this as a leadership style? Well, in the Air Force, one of our three core values is called service before self. This is a very difficult concept to really understand, and it took me many years to really kind of dig in to understand what that really means. It really means doing your duty with respect, whether it be pleasant or unpleasant. You know, whether you go to a bad duty location or you get a good duty location, but you relinquish the stakes of the outcome. So whether it is you've accomplished something with the team, it wasn't just you. You highlight your team as much as you can. And we understand that we have obligations with wearing this uniform to not just wearing the uniform as a job, but we have an obligation to serve the people in the community around us, and that's why we are known as servicemen and servicewomen. So here are two examples that come to mind when I think of a servant leader: Jesus Christ and Jose Andreas. He's a chef. They understood that their missions were not about themselves; their actions were always about the people. I think most people have heard the story of Jesus Christ. But Jose Andreas is the owner of World Central Kitchen, which is his desires to travel the world and feed individuals who are impacted by worldly disasters, everything from Hurricane Katrina all the way to the Ukraine crisis right now. So I think he's done an amazing job with actually being a servant leader. Our final contemporary theory of leadership is actually talking about followership. This actually really took flight back in 1992. Um, f- Before then, followership is really kind of neglected when it came to the study of leadership until Robert Kelly addressed it in his book called The Power of Followership. This book influenced many individuals after him to really dig into the power of understanding followership. Now, the core concepts of this is understanding or the types of followers that you have on the team. And if you understand who they are and kind of how they follow, you can assign proper tasks for the different followers to be effective. You actually can embrace the difference with the individuals on your team, and also allow followers to contribute in a way that best suits them. It also allows a great flow of communication up and down the chain of command. Now, in the military, we are taught how to become the best leaders possible, and we always strive for the next rank and the next position. But it took me 21 years in service to actually realize that none of that really matters about the position, because no matter what position you're in, you can be effective even as a follower. So here's two great examples of followers, and I chose Aristotle and Warren Buffett. Both of those individuals became very successful because they were first great apprentices, and they've learned to follow first. So anyway, this concludes my briefing on contemporary theories of leadership, and hopefully you have a better understanding of these types of leadership styles.